Alexis Marie Chute. She is a local artist, a writer, and a photographer. She also writes a blog called Wanted, Chosen, Planned to support bereaved parents like herself. She lost her second child, Zachary. She is here today with her two living children, Hannah and Eden, as well as her husband, Aaron. Alexis Marie is passionate about the use of art for healing and giving others a platform to share their stories. So Alexis, please come share yours.
It's amazing how you think you're okay. And then you come into an environment like this and you're like, just knocked back. This is not in my notes, but I was at a Stillbirth and SIDS conference recently in Europe, presenting about art and healing. And I kept having these like crying times when I was interacting with people there, and it was funny, they had a different perspective. I said, oh, I don't know why I'm doing this. It's been 4 years for me. They said, 4 years? That is so fresh, I can't believe it, And I think that we have a very different perspective here in North America about the timeline, that we're supposed to work through our grief and be okay and, buck up and be strong. So, I welcome you to feel the feelings that you're experiencing today. It's very important. So thank you all for coming today. It is truly a beautiful thing to be able to gather in a supportive community as we celebrate our children. Today I would like to share some thoughts about the idea of control, which is one aspect that I never thought about before, but that came to the forefront when I was going through my own struggle with loss. Control. It's not a pretty word. It means to exercise restraint over something, to dominate, to command, to regulate, to ensure. While control is not necessarily the nicest word, though, it does provide us some comfort. We decide when we wake up, we decide what we want to wear, what we want to have for breakfast, control the aspects of our life that we can. And this gives us a level of comfort. There's routine and predictability with the control we have in our lives. Having control is like a breath of fresh air. It takes away worry. Everything is taken care of, right? We can control the important things in our lives, like who we want to marry, what we want to take in school, where we want to work and live. Thanks to modern contraceptives, we now have a huge control over when we want to start a family. Control leaves little room for spontaneity, but it does provide a sense of satisfaction that there will be no unforeseen surprises in life. But the death of a child, however, is a surprise that no one anticipates unless they've experienced it themselves. It is a loss beyond our control, beyond all the directing and calculating and ensuring, all the checking, all the things that we do in our lives to make sure that we have everything under control. After my son Zachary died 4 years ago this month, the loss of control I experienced was all-encompassing. I felt that it was one of the most debilitating aspects of my grief that held me in a place of sadness for so long. I realized in that time how little control I actually did have over many of the things in my life. And not knowing how to respond, I embarked on a frantic journey of trying to control everything I could in a way so that I didn't lose myself in the process. Have any of you experienced that? The loss of control is just knocks you over when you're not expecting it. So as many of you know, I'm an artist and a writer. And for some time after Zachary died, I didn't do any writing. I didn't paint. I couldn't bring myself to it. I was in a way scared what would come out on the canvas, so to speak. But it was only by returning to those passions and finding the vulnerable, creative part to myself that I was able to move towards healing. As a part of my grief journey, as a way to distract myself, I decided one day I'm going to write a novella, which is a short novel. And I was going to write about a love story. It was going to be a romance. This is going to be a great way just to, get out of my grief and to focus on something different. And I want to tell you a little bit about that story. I wrote it about 3 years ago, and it was about a woman who went on a business trip. And she went to a meeting and she, saw this handsome man, and they fell in love and had this whirlwind type of relationship. But they were not without their own bumps and detours along the way. They parted ways, and eventually they came back realizing the power and importance of their bond. And it was at that point that the woman discovered she was pregnant. And then she started to bleed. To add a side note here, this is not a story of how my husband and I got together or of how we lost our son Zachary. And I honestly did not set out to write a story about a pregnancy that, had all these challenges. But it was obviously one of those things that my own loss was in a subconscious place, but it bubbled out into the writing. Continuing on, the woman and the man did everything they could to save their baby. They underwent tests, practically lived in the hospital, had tough choices to make. Some of their family were supportive, some other people did not understand. I cried as I wrote about this couple's struggle, because I knew the emotions. It was me in many ways. I asked myself again and again, why did I write this story? Why did the words just keep flowing out of me? This is one great part about writing, and all creative art forms, is that when you engage in them, you have the control, you have the power. You decide what you make, how you want to sing, how you want to dance. You decide what words to put onto the paper. So having it told you how the story ends for my couple. Spoiler alert. The book ends with a wedding. The woman and the man have survived along with their love. And along with their baby. And I did not see that come out. I did not foresee that coming out of me. But when I reflect on it, when I had the pen, when I had the control, there was no way that that baby was dying. I reflect, if only we had that ability to write our own real-life stories in that way. I think everyone wishes that we could go back and change the last chapters of our lives to include a very important person that is not with us. And truly there is not a day that goes by that I don't wish to rewrite my story, to include my son Zachary, alive and well and full of youthful mischief, his health and happiness secured forevermore, happily ever after, right? I think that's the longing of all of our hearts, to have our children with us. The loss of control can be scary. It puts us in a position of surrender and vulnerability. Giving up our control forces us to accept the mysterious parts of life that can alter our course without our consent. Yet what I have learned through life, all of its ups and downs, is that the best parts of the human experience cannot be controlled. Well, I do encourage you to let go of the desire to orchestrate all the elements of your life. I also wish to empower you to take back control over the areas that are within your power, the areas that are good, and that can help you find healing. So what does this positive type of control look like? You can see it in people who pick up their pen and write around the unforeseen obstacles that block their way. These people still struggle, but they also realize that they possess the power over their response to their loss and to their heartache. All of us in this room cannot rewrite our past to save our children. We cannot go back to alter the course that brought us here to this place today. But we do have a say in how it defines the people that we become. It is good and right to grieve. It is helpful sometimes to distract ourselves and maybe even lose ourselves for a time. But it's so important to be found, to find our way out and back into living rich and meaningful lives. Children, those living and those in spirit, teach us what really matters. We can write our stories moving forward from here to include all the love that we still have for our children, the love that did not die, and all the hard-earned lessons that this unpredictable journey has taught us. While we cannot control everything that happened to us, nor the most beautiful parts of life, such as love, hope, and joy, we can write into our stories the opportunity for these things, the opportunities for gratitude, compassion, and happiness. When I sat down to write that love story, I did not know where the plot would take me, but I wrote my characters to respond in heroic, beautiful, and honest ways. They still failed often. They said the wrong things, they wept, they threw things in anger, they behaved poorly, but they chose to persevere to see the sunshine at the end of the storm. That is what I hope you will write into all of your own unique stories. Our children are important chapters, the best, most challenging and love-filled parts of our lives, even in the face of loss. But each and every one of us here are not done yet. We can celebrate our beautiful babies by finding the good in what we've been through and in ourselves. I believe this will make our children smile. So I brought some pens in this basket here. So it's very crowded, so if you feel compelled to take back the control in a symbolic way, I invite you to later to go up and get a pen. They're not fancy, they're like, 5 cents each. Will probably die halfway through using them, but just as something to think about is to pick up your pen and take control and enjoy the parts of life and find happiness where you can. Maybe that will be writing a letter to your child, or marking a date in a calendar for a special trip you've always wanted to take, or just doodling hearts in the margin of your page. Even though you may not understand why your story has brought you to this place, you can determine where you go from here. Thank you.
And thank you, Alexis.